What up, guys? This is Big Clap 34 and you're watching Featured on Truck Central. Let's get into it. What's up, guys? Big Clap 34 coming at you today in a hot parking lot. It's currently 95 degrees. Why am I out here? Well, the folks over at Truck Central hit me up and asked me if I wanted to present on this channel. Normally you see me on the Big Clap 34 channel, but today we're over here. And because I was so honored and grateful to have them consider me amongst all of the other great hosts that you'll see here on Truck Central, I wanted to think of a good idea for a video that would maybe uncover a little bit of experience or knowledge that I have. That could really help somebody out who's in a particular position. So if you're in that bracket of looking for a pickup truck in under $10,000 range, even closer to the $5,000 range, I think I know of one that you might not exactly think of, but once you get to tour it and see what it's all about, you might be headed to eBay or Craigslist or wherever you want to purchase a vehicle to check them out and see them for yourself. Maybe go test drive one even. No, I'm not talking about my 2000 Silverado, which is the race truck that I've been working on. That's going to dominate every other race truck on YouTube, of course. But instead, the vehicle that I drive every day, my 2002 Chevy Avalanche. Now, the Avalanche is definitely a polarizing vehicle. A lot of people love it, a lot of people hate it, and you know, with these big plastic bumpers, which is probably about the only thing that I don't love about this truck, well, I could see why people would look at it and judge a book by its cover. But when I take you inside, I think that if you're one of those people that hates the Avalanche, you might just change your mind a little bit, especially when you see how much value this thing packs into a small price point. First, maybe you'll let me tell you a little bit about my personal experience with the Avalanche, how I got it, what kind of work I've done with it, all kinds of stuff like that. And then we'll start touring all of these features from front to back, and as you get closer to the back, honestly, they just keep getting better and better and more impressive, especially compared to some of the other trucks that I've driven and worked with. So just to get out of the sun real quick, let's talk about how I got this thing and my experience with it, and just so you can get an idea of how much I beat on this thing and it just takes the abuse. So the truck came into the family at 105,000 miles. From there, I would, you know, beat it around, use its features to the max, pull a trailer with not only the old Corvette that I used to have on it, but also the new work truck, which is a little bit heavier, and this thing takes it like a champion. The only thing that the truck has ever needed during its whole life, as far as it's been in my family, is a fuel pump, which is under $100 to replace. I guess at 235,000 miles, you could say that the truck's been doing a pretty good job, because generally when you get to that 150, 200 mark, it'll start nickel and diming you to death, to the point where you're almost just ready to go out and buy another vehicle entirely. So when you come inside, up front in the gauge cluster, you really get your traditional Chevy pickup truck parts. It's kind of like the bargain bin at GM, where they just take it and apply it to all of their trucks. You know, the gauge cluster and the steering wheel and all of that stuff feels like a traditional Silverado. But behind that, you begin to get a little bit more than your traditional Silverado. These seats are some of the most comfortable that I've ever sat in. I've taken trips that are 15 hours to an event and 15 hours back, and these things absolutely kill it. They do a great job of giving you support and comfort, along with the suspension that handles the road like a charm. I didn't mention it yet, but this is the Z66 package. It's a two-wheel drive truck, which I know isn't the preference for most people, but for me, it actually ended up working out perfectly. It's a little bit lighter. It has a different suspension underneath with softer shocks, which from the factory are self-leveling. I think that because it's getting pretty old, it's a 2002, they've kind of worn themselves out a little bit. But I do have a set of airbags that I'm getting ready to throw in the rear coils. That should help the leveling of the rear once again. As far as towing goes, which is kind of one of the main purposes of the Z66, it does really well. This 5.3 makes plenty of power and torque. It's not as easy as a diesel, obviously, because the chassis is a little bit lighter. It's a 1500, not a 2500, but as far as pulling with 1500 trucks go, it's pretty smooth. You do notice the trailer is back there. It's not the completely, you know, not noticing anything is behind you feeling that you get with something like a diesel, but it definitely pulls if you want to do like an open car trailer or something like that. I've pulled around my Vet, I've pulled around my other truck with it. It doesn't have a problem. The rear suspension sags a little bit, but like I said, those airbags, from what I've read online, I don't want to vouch for them yet, but they seem to do the job to get the suspension back up. So power-wise, we're good. Suspension-wise, might need a tiny bit of help, but That's all right, it's to be expected with a truck this old. Coming back here with the bed, this is where the truck really starts to shine. So, typical tailgate, nothing special about it. None of those newer truck features like the step bar or any of that. It is an older truck. When you get inside, you got this rubber mat. As you can see, I do use the bed a lot for just random things. Right now I have a torque converter and some brakes back here, but ignoring that, we have this rubber mat, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but things do not move on it. Let's just say that maybe one time I was selling a subwoofer and had to drive all the way to New Jersey, a couple hours away, and the tailgate fell down and I didn't notice. The subwoofer was sitting right here on the mat and did not slide 1 inch. So I got to New Jersey and still had a subwoofer in the back of my truck, which if this wasn't here and it was just the plastic beneath it, well, you'd probably be up the creek without a paddle. Going inside the bed, as you'll see here, this is really useful as well. GM just started advertising these little footholes for their newer trucks, and when the commercial came out with saying, yeah, we got these bumper steps and they're so great, I'm like, didn't you guys make those back in 2002? Yes! You don't think about it until you're in the moment, but when you're jumping in and out of this bed moving stuff, it really helps. So coming back here in the bed, there are more little things back here that you wouldn't think about until you don't have them. Now, one thing you might notice about my truck is that the bed covers are not on right now. I actually took the bracketry off so I could fit something wider in here, and I don't really use them anyway, but there are bed covers which are really nice if you want to keep your cargo dry. The seals on them are notorious for going bad, but they're replaceable, I guess. Really nice thing about this truck is that it has a lot of cargo tie downs, which again seems like a small detail, but you know, once upon a time I borrowed my buddy's Cummins to move some things and there were no cargo tie downs in the bed whatsoever. They had the little holes in the side of the bed on those trucks, and while one of those trucks is much more desirable than one of these, it just didn't do the job and it was awkward. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cargo tie downs, which is really nice. You know, you can tie things in a bunch of different ways. And we have 1, 2 bed lights, which also another great feature. It's just one of those things that you wouldn't think about until you actually need to use it, and you could just pop on the lights and see what you're doing. As an Avalanche, it is indeed a 5.5 foot bed, which sometimes you could use a 6 foot bed or an 8 foot bed, but if you really want to get the job done, this wall actually goes away and you can put things in the back of the trucks. One feature that I'm not sure why every truck does not have is the toolboxes in the side of the bed. This is the most useful thing ever. I throw my straps in here, I throw my cables in here, whatever I have, and they have a lock right on them. So it's pretty neat. You could lock the lid, throw whatever in there. We're about here to about here. So we got about 3 or 4 feet worth of cargo room on both sides that you could play with. In addition to handles to help you get in the bed, that also acts as another tie down point if you really need it. All right, so I actually don't think I'm gonna need a helmet for this demonstration, so we're just gonna move this real quick. When I fold this down, by the way, this is neat. I don't have kids, thankfully, yet, but little cup holders, place to eat off of, I guess, or put whatever in this center console here. 2 more cup holders up here, which is neat. So as far as these seats go, you just do 1, 2. There's storage under here as well. The driver's seat motors also burn out, which kind of sucks, but so sometimes it takes a little bit of pushing, but this lays flat. You have more cargo area. This isn't designed just to have the bed fold down, but when you fold these down, it's a little bit more from roof to floor, because this basically sits, you know, a couple inches above the floor instead of the seats, which are lifted up higher, obviously. From there, one simple turn, your bed extends, and you have a couple more feet. It's probably a 7 or 8 foot bed at this point. And from there, I've never actually used this feature, so you just do that, I think, that, hit this button, and your glass comes out, like so. So you basically can get rid of the back glass, and I don't think this support comes out. By the way, as you guys might have commonly seen on my channel, if you watch it, is that I haul dogs around, pit bulls. They're big, they're wild, they climb all around the back seat, and The leather's really held up to their claws, which is surprising to me. However, I do have to admit that one big fatal shortcoming of this truck when it comes to being able to carry my dogs is it doesn't have drool-proof windows, so their slobber goes absolutely everywhere. To try and get a final verdict and sum up everything that we just talked about versus what you would get in another truck, we're going to talk about a couple of different aspects real quick. We're going to talk about exterior, interior, performance, and utility, because it's very much a vehicle that you're probably going to be using for utility. Otherwise, you're probably looking at a Tahoe or something like that. So on the interior, I feel like this truck kind of is one of the more luxurious vehicles that you're going to get for that $5,000 or $6,000, $7,000 maybe price point. Just as a point of comparison, the work truck that I purchased to be my race truck literally has no options. It has roll-up windows, it doesn't have a carpet in it, it doesn't have power locks, it doesn't have power seats, it has junk in it, all of which is going to be replaced. But just to give you kind of a point of comparison, that cost $6,000 with unknown mileage, which I think was a pretty decent deal. For $6,000, you can get one of these with pretty decent mileage on it, and it has that kind of more luxurious feel as far as old pickup trucks go, with the leather seats and the heated and the power everything and this, that, and the other. Outside, I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder. The only thing that you have to get over is these black plastic bumpers, which I know are very polarizing. People love them or hate them, or maybe there's some people in between, but a lot of people have an opinion about them. No matter what you do, you're not going to be able to get them to stay black. They are always going to fade to this kind of dim gray, hazy looking stuff. Performance, okay, you can't go wrong. It has an LS motor in it, and that's all I really have to say about that. Utility. So that's where this thing really shines. The bed and all of the features you get back there, I guess you could add them to a different truck if you really wanted to, but in terms of factory options, all of the tie downs back there, the toolboxes, you know, the lighting in the bed, the steps, all that kind of stuff, super useful, and definitely not something that you're gonna see in a comparable pickup truck from the same era. So I think that in utility it gets a 10. I guess that overall, if you have less than $10,000 to spend, you might want a traditional pickup truck, but I think that the Chevy Avalanche is definitely a vehicle that you should at least take a look into, maybe go test drive one. That has been my take on the Chevy Avalanche. This is Jesse Kleiber, aka Big Clive 34, coming at you with Truck Central. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for them, and as always, show some love to that like button. These guys are really good guys. There's a lot of content on here that you're gonna enjoy, from having fun with trucks to reviews of trucks to new news about trucks and opinion pieces like this. So thank you guys for watching. It's about all I got for you.